Biden created the worst inflation in 49 years, 9.1%. I believe it's much higher than that, by the way. And it's going higher, costing families nearly $5,000, and now they're estimating $6,000 to $7,000 a year. Think of that, $7,000 a year. After the pandemic, we handed the radical Democrats the fastest economic recovery ever recorded, the history of our country ever recorded. They've turned that into 2 straight quarters of negative economic growth, also known, despite their protestation to the contrary, as a recession. And just hope that the recession doesn't turn into a depression, because the way they're doing things, it could be a lot worse than a recession. And the labor force participation is the worst in many, many decades. That's the number that you have to look at. I rebuilt our military, including our nuclear capability, and we hope to God we never have to use it. But I rebuilt it. They had equipment, and they had rockets, and they had bombs that they had no idea if they even worked. They were so old. It's all new or newly renovated, and the power is greater than any power ever in the history of our country, but in the history of this world, and we just hope it never gets used. And we created a thing called Space Force. They smiled at it. Biden smiled at it. And it's turned out to be so important, not, as you know, in Space Force, not for 79 years since Air Force has anything like that been done. 79 years. Air Force was the last one, now it's Space Force. Remember the first day they laughed at it, oh, Space Force, they thought they were going to end it, and the public went crazy, because you people know much more than they do. They surrendered our strength and our everything, our dignity, and turned Afghanistan into the greatest humiliation our country has ever seen. Not the fact that we were leaving, because I was the one that got us down to a small number of soldiers, but we were going to leave with strength and with dignity, and we were going to keep Bagram, not for Afghanistan, but because China's nuclear plants are 1 hour away, where they make their nuclear weapons, 1 hour away. It's one of the biggest airfields anywhere in the world. It cost us billions of dollars many years ago. I was going to keep Bagram. And you know who's occupying Bagram right now? China! And the fake news doesn't want to mention it. But the way we left was a virtual surrender. When you leave, you don't take your soldiers out first. You take your soldiers out last. After the Americans get out, and you take your soldiers out after your equipment is taken out. And all of that was happening. This is the most incredible blunder, and the fake news doesn't want to write about it because that's bad for them. Look, you don't even hear about so many bad things. You don't ever hear about them anymore. We created the safest border in U.S. history by far. By far. And now it's the worst border ever in history. There's never been a border like it, and that includes, in my opinion, third world countries, because there's no third world country that would allow millions of people to pour in. They have no idea. Last month, 141 countries were represented, not just your 3 plus Mexico. 141 countries were represented, people that came in illegally. We're going to be paying a price for this for many years to come in terms of terrorism and crime. We ended catch and release. We deported record numbers of illegal alien gang members. And we built hundreds and hundreds of miles of border wall. In fact, we completely finished our original border wall plan, despite 2.5 years of horrible Democrat-inspired lawsuits and litigation. And I won all of those suits. And then we started and we did some job, and that gave us these incredible numbers that frankly everyone talks about today. And the number of people coming in, that's not 3 million or 4 million. In my opinion, it would be anywhere from 10 to 15 million people this year. 10 to 15 million people. We have no idea who the hell they are. We then added much more of the border wall, and most of that got finished too. 3 weeks was all it would have taken, 3 weeks, and it would have been completed, the extra addition that we added. The border was the best ever. Think of it. It was the best ever. I went to Mexico, and I said to the president of Mexico, who I like a lot, he's a socialist, but I even like a couple of socialists in the world, about 3. But I said, President, you're going to have to give us 28,000 troops to protect our border while we're building the wall. No, I cannot do that. God, but you have to. No, I cannot do that. And we started a negotiation. A woman from the State Department, good woman, she said, you won't ever get any of these things. I said to the Border Patrol, who was fantastic, by the way, give me your top 10 things. So I said, give me your top 10 things that you want. And they gave me 10, and the woman looked at me, she laughed, she said, sir, I've been dealing in Mexico for 25 years, you won't get any. I said, no, I'll get them all. I'll get them all. Guaranteed I get them all. And she's smart. She was a good woman, by the way, but she's been doing this for 25 years. She said, you won't get anything. And what happened is the top representative came in, met this woman and others, and I said, you're going to have to give us 28,000 troops. You're going to have to do a thing called remain in Mexico. In other words, people can no longer come into our country. You have to remain in Mexico. Hundreds of thousands of people remain in Mexico. And 8 other things, which were in many ways probably worse, right? Probably worse. And I remember he laughed at me. He said, we won't do this. He thought I was crazy. He said, no, you're going to do it. You will. You do. No, we won't do it. We will not do that. We're not going to give you troops free. We're not going to give you troops, so we're not going to give you remain in Mexico. Why would we do such a thing? I said, because on Monday morning I'm signing an order that every single car that you make and every single product that you sell into the United States will have a 25% tariff on it. And he said, may I leave the room to make a call? I said, 5 minutes later he comes back. Mr. President, we would be honored to supply you with 28,000. So we would be honored to accept hundreds of thousands of people all over Mexico and remain in Mexico until we check them out. It was pretty amazing. We got all 10 things. It took about 5 minutes. It took longer to create the piece of paper that he had to sign than it did to win the negotiation. But we don't do that too much. You know, we have a big advantage over China, but people don't know it. We have an advantage over Russia, big, but we don't know it. Nobody knows it. They don't know how to use it if they did know it. The border was the best and safest in U.S. recorded history. They've turned it into a nightmare so quickly. The election was rigged and stolen, and now our country is being systematically destroyed. And everybody knows it. And this corrupt January 6th of unselect people, they're unselect. They never comment when I use that. It's the unselect committee. But this corrupt group of people, these are the same people that went after me for the impeachment hoax, number 1, number 2, the same people, Adam Shifty Schiff, the same people. They look into the mics, then they lose, and then they go into the next one. It's a disgusting, if they'd used the same energy to go and make our country great, it would be an incredible thing, but I don't know if they can do that. But I ran twice, I won twice, and did much better the second time than I did the first, getting millions and millions of more votes than in 2016, and likewise getting more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country by far. And now we may have to do it again. We may have to do it again. Thank you. Thank you. It's so sad what's happened to our country. We're like a third world country in elections, and we're like a third world country on airports. Has anybody been flying around lately or trying? We're like third world. But first we have to win an earth-shattering victory in 2022. We have to do it. Coming up in November. So to win in this November, this election needs to be a national referendum on the horrendous catastrophes the radical Democrats have inflicted on our country. The Republican Party needs to campaign on a clear pledge that if they are given power, they're going to fight with everything they have to shut down the border, stop the crime wave, beat inflation, and hold the Biden administration accountable. They have to hold it accountable. Job number one for the next Congress: thank you very much. Job number one for the next Congress and the next president will be to restore public safety. People are walking outside and getting shot in the head because of the radical left's merciless crusade to dismantle law enforcement in America. Our country is now a cesspool of crime, like it's never been before. They've never seen anything like it. Other countries are talking about it. We're talking about democracy. Isn't it great? And then they say, you had 7 people killed in Chicago this weekend. You had 68 people shot. That's not democracy. That's not what we stand for. Savage criminals are being released on cashless bail to continue their violent rampages against the United States of America. Entire communities are being torn to shreds with stabbings, shootings, stranglings, rapes, and murders. On that little piece we showed you, did you see the man with the knife in the back? Did anybody see that? I looked at it. I didn't notice it the first time, and I looked at it tonight. I'm getting ready to come on. A knife right in somebody's back. The streets of our Democrat-run cities are drenched with the blood of innocent victims. Gun battles rage between bloodthirsty street gangs. Bullets tear into crowds at random, killing wonderful, beautiful little children that never even had a chance. They're struck and they're killed, and carjackers lay in wait like predators, hunting their prey. They want that car, they're going to take that car. In California, people are leaving the trunks of their cars open so criminals don't smash the windows when they try to rob their valuables. They leave the trunk open so that they don't break the car and break the back of the car when they try and steal the tire and what's ever in the trunk. So they just leave it open, take it, but please don't destroy my car. In Los Angeles, burglars are stalking people back to their homes to clean out the entire house at gunpoint. They follow them. They live in Beverly Hills. They live in some nice community. They follow them back and they go into the house and they do things that you don't want to know about. And this has to stop, and it has to stop now. We are going to make America great again, but we have to make America safe again first. It's time for leaders who have the courage to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. It has to happen. It has to be happened. That's why when I see Tudor, when I see Kerry, when I see the people that are running, these people are not going to play games. They want to bring our country back. They're going to bring our country back. To repair the damage from Democrats, gutting of police forces nationwide, defund the police. How about that? Defund the police. Now they're saying, well, we really didn't say that. Oh, yeah, they did. And now they're saying it again. Never going to change. The next Congress should spearhead the largest increase in the hiring of police officers in American history, hiring tens of thousands more officers nationwide. Make our cities safe. We have to leave our police alone. Let them do their job. Give them back their respect. They know what to do. We have to allow them to do it. You know, when I came out here a little while ago, I have a consultant, and he's a very nice person. He's a rhino. And he said to me, "Sir, I don't think you should say that last statement. I don't think you should say it. It's really not good. I don't think it'll be that popular." I said, "What? You mean the fact that we should let police do their job?" "Sir, I think it's probably not going to be received well." "I don't care. You have to let them do their job. He's a rhino, but he's a nice person. We'll probably keep him on the payroll, you know." We need to return to the tried and true strategy of a thing called stop and frisk. We have to take the guns away from people that are criminals. Instead of taking guns away from law-abiding Americans, let's take them away from the violent felons and career criminals for a change. And we also need a no-holds-barred national campaign to dismantle organized crimes. These are street crimes. Organized crime today is on the streets, and this administration doesn't want to talk about that crime. They want to talk about what they think are other crimes, and many people say they're not crimes. We have to round up the drug dealers, the gang members, and the dangerous offenders, charge them for their crimes, and get them either out of our country and back to where they came from, or put them behind bars. If you look at countries throughout the world, there's another thing. Please don't say it, sir. Please, sir. I've been doing this for 30 years, sir. Then I looked at his list of wins. It's not too good. Please don't say it, sir. If you look at countries throughout the world, the only ones that don't have a drug problem are those that institute the death penalty for drug dealers. That's it. When I was in China, and until the plague came in, I had a very good relationship with President Xi. We made a great trade deal for our manufacturers and farmers, but after the plague, I don't even talk about that deal. Too much damage done. But I had a great relationship with President Xi of China. Strong man. You could go all over Hollywood. You couldn't get an actor to play the role of President Xi. He's a great guy in many respects, but he's not too in love with our country. I can tell you that. But I said very innocently, "Do you have a drug problem?" First time I met. And he looked at me like, what kind of a stupid question is that? No, I said, "President, do you have a drug problem in China?" No, I don't have it. Why would we have a drug problem? I said, "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, quick trial. Quick trial." I said, "What's a quick trial?" Quick trial is they bring drug dealers quickly to trial, and if they're guilty, it's immediate execution. Now, it sounds horrible. It does sound horrible, but every drug dealer in this country, they say on average, will kill at least 500 people. Some people think it's much higher than that. So you would stop it. And I believe if you instituted the death penalty for drug dealers, traffickers, I believe that drug dealing would go down 50% on day one. 50%. I really believe that. I think it goes down the day you institute it. I'll tell you one thing, if I'm a drug dealer, I'm going to say, "No thanks, I'm going someplace else." And so are other people. In Singapore, you see what's going on in Singapore? Very rich society, very powerful on drugs. They have no drug problem whatsoever. A lot of money, plenty of money to buy drugs. They have no drug problem. They have the death penalty for drug dealers. Other countries likewise. We form blue ribbon committees where we put our great First Lady, Melania. She's in charge. We have a blue ribbon committee headed by the First Lady and very nice people, fine people, dilettantes, socialites. If they ever met a real killer drug dealer, they ever met El Chapo or any of these people, I think that would be the end of them. They'd say, "I'm not doing this anymore." But we have blue ribbon committees headed up by great people that really are well-meaning. And and I will tell you, our First Lady did a good job. She worked hard, and we got drugs down 19%. That's great. But you know what that is? It's like nothing. And today it's worse than it's ever been because the border's so open that not only people are coming through, and bad ones, criminals are emptying their jails into our country, but drugs are coming into our country at a level that we've never seen before. Fentanyl coming in from China. You know, I was with Xi and I said, listen, you can't send fentanyl, you can't do it. They were really cutting down. They were really cutting down. Things were going really well. And then this tragedy happened in November, 2 years ago. Tragedy. It was a tragedy for our country what happened because of what's gone on. All they had to do was leave everything in place. This place was going so good, and they couldn't help themselves. What a sad thing. But when I see these blue ribbon committees, it's just, and everyone wants to get on. Could I get on the blue ribbon committee, says the local architect? Yeah, but they don't know what's happening here. No, you need the death penalty for drug dealers. Drugs will go down immediately by 50% and probably more. But you have to mean it, and you have to mean it. And when you look at China and other places, they don't have a problem. If they had that problem, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing right now. And they weren't. They had this problem many, many decades ago. And other countries, far smaller, were able to invade them and take them over because everybody was suffering from drugs. And they said, we can't do this.
I'm going to stop right there, weigh in on what he's talking about pertaining to the drug problem. China really did have a bad opium problem at one time, to the point that they basically had to go around and genocide all the drug dealers and dig mass holes to be able to bury everybody into. They really did get taken over by opium. The things that Donald Trump is talking about right now pertaining to bringing the death penalty over here in America is a reflection upon that in which what I have been saying all along pertaining to the psychiatric communities over here that have, I'm going to use the word brainwashed various people in believing that if we commit capital punishment upon people that deserve capital punishment, that this is inhumane. A matter of fact, there's a lot of states that it's illegal for them to commit capital punishment in the degree towards taking somebody else's life, even at the expense of somebody going in and massacring a group of people. So until we can get this worked out pertaining to the massacres, the people that gets out here that wants to do bodily harm to people, vicious, cruel people, as far as I'm concerned, they're evil, that want to do this to individuals. Until we can get that wrinkled out here in America, do you really think that America is going to vote in the death penalty towards getting rid of drug dealers here in America? You know why they won't vote it in? I'm going to tell you why. Because the majority of these families know that they've got drug dealers in their family. It may be a distant family. It may be a lost, forgotten cousin somewhere. But they know that if they was to pass a law like this, that it would basically jeopardize their own family pertaining to capital punishment. I have said all along, and I'll continue to say, that what Donald Trump was about towards turning the country around, towards draining the swamp, towards pushing his presidential weight around, in a lot of those areas was super, super good. Super good. The things that he done for the veterans, pertaining to allowing for them to be able to go at different hospitals to choose their own doctor, was super, super good. But there was also a lot of things that he done that was super, super bad. And what happened January the 6th, in which I'm sure he's only going to speak around it a little bit, was super, super bad. That was a bad, bad move. he talked about that every lawsuit that he's won, all of them. If I'm not mistaken, that is another lie. I'm not going to say that he's lost every one of them, but he has not won every one of them. And to me, telling half-truths is just as bad as lying. Now, there's no doubt he makes a good conversation pertaining to the illegal immigrants that has been piling over here in America now for years and years and years, that has basically gotten out of control. This is based upon one of the Russian prime ministers that said we would take America over and never fire a shot. The incentive in behind what Donald Trump was trying to do towards building the wall or building the fence was in fact a decent incentive. But by him sticking his chest out the way that he did on all these other countries, now we got Russia that's sticking out their chest against the Ukrainians. Now we have China that's sticking out their chest against a country that they felt like that got taken from them illegitimately, as far as Taiwan. And now we've got the ordeal going on over in the Middle East pertaining to Iran. And I still go back to where the church, or the so-called church members here messed up in America, going back 30 plus years ago, whenever they didn't do what they should have done, that obviously they still to this day are not doing. They are still not promoting the founder of the Windmill Ministries, which is the individual speaking to you right now, towards being in charge and it being an authentic, godly, divinely chosen message to come forth. There's so many mistruths, there's so many hardships, there's so many bad actors. It's just an entanglement of a cesspool, just as Donald Trump made mention of. I personally believe that he should be held fully accountable for what happened January the 6th, because he purposely riled up a group of people knowing that he had lost the election. Just the other day, Kansas, the state of Kansas, voted in a majority towards reinstating a woman's rights, towards her having full control of her body in reproduction rights or aborting the baby. The reason why that the Supreme Court finally woke up and done the right thing towards voting out Roe versus Wade was because the Supreme Court realizes that they are not the highest court in the land. God is the creator that created all things. And the Supreme Court was trying to do the right thing. The people in the land don't know how to vote in the right thing. Whenever you're still beating the drum towards giving women the privileges of destroying young innocent lives, unborn children, just because they don't want that child for whatever reason, you are destroying the American future. You are destroying millions of lives. What the Supreme Court has done before this last action of Roe versus Wade has been some of the ungodliest stuff that I can ever think of, especially during Obama's administration. And you know, it's very, very hard to take something back. It's very hard. Once you put it into an existence, and you realize that you've put the wrong thing into an existence, it's extremely difficult to back up and pull it out and act as if that it never had been. It would be the same thing if I walked up to you and you was hungry and I gave you a biscuit, and all of a sudden you put it in your mouth and you started eating it, and then all of a sudden I jerked the biscuit out. You never should have given the biscuit to begin with. The actions of the Supreme Court of what that they was engaged in before this year of making their decision about Roe versus Wade has been some of the ungodliest decisions that has been made for a people. And I can sit back and actually see where China is contemplating towards finding another business partner other than America towards selling their goods to, and it being legitimate because of the illegitimacies that's went on in our political arena. I can see where for the past 30 plus years, the reason why the people in the Middle East and other parts of the country hate our guts, because the way that we have bullied ourselves around towards destroying their way of life. I can see these things going all the way back to the Reagan era of how come they didn't promote the right thing in regards towards a revival, a spiritual revival that would have inevitably led to a revolution. It would have inevitably led to the meek inheriting the earth. But because a great deal of people thought that I was either joking or thought that this was some kind of some sort of a scam or a scheme, because various people didn't have close enough relationships with the Heavenly Father that they couldn't interpret the Bible correctly in understanding the reason why that God would say the things that He said in the book of Revelations. They blackballed me. They put me out on a limb. They used me. And they're still using me, because they're still saying that they want peace, but yet now there's no spiritual movement coming from the Windmill Ministries missions. So they're full of it. They're absolutely full of it, and they're lying to themselves and they're lying to other people whenever they tell you that we truly want to get crime off the streets. It has led now, pertaining to the crime, regardless whether it's the drug crime or the rapes or the murders or whatever else kind of violent crime, it has led to the point now that the only way that a civilized society is going to be able to embark upon winning that fight or overcoming that obstacle is that they themselves are going to have to become barbaric in the degree of what this man right here is talking about, as far as enacting the death penalty. And like I said a while ago, I don't think America's going to do that, because first of all, they don't embrace the Windmill Ministries, or they don't locally. If they do, I ain't heard nothing about it. And secondly, I don't think they're going to do it because they know that too many people in their family members or themselves has either been on drugs, or they're still on drugs, or they're a drug dealer themselves. This is all the consequences of what went on whenever 9 tapes went to Ronald Reagan's administration during the latter part of his administration. Secret Service has a big to-do in what that they have allowed to happen here in America towards bringing destruction and devastation into people's lives. And to this day, as far as I know, it still ain't been dealt with as far as accountability wise in regards towards the old Reagan and Bush administration's cabinet members, those that was associated or connected with that presidency at that time, still has not been held accountable. Just like Saudi Arabia over in the Middle East that plotted 9/11, that still hadn't been addressed properly. So whenever you get to talking about justice, yes, God bless the people that enacted what they enacted pertaining to the girl up in Louisville, Kentucky, that basically died a death that she didn't have to die. But look at all the other pain and suffering, and look at all the other stuff that's going on that still to this day hadn't been brought to justice. It's really sad.
So it's not very politically correct to say it, but you'll save millions and millions of lives. Last year we lost probably 250,000 people to drugs. 250. There's no war. If you were at war, these are numbers that are bigger than war numbers. 250,000. They say it's 100,000. I say it's much more than that. It's probably much more than 250,000. But you also have destroyed millions and millions of families throughout our nation because of drugs. In places where there is a true breakdown of the rule of law, such as the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago, the next president should use every power at his disposal to restore order, and if necessary, that includes sending in the National Guard or the troops. Every American of every background deserves to live in safety and in peace. Every American. One of the things that we were saddled with, and one of the hardest decisions I had to make when I looked at some of these cities that were run by Democrats going so bad so fast, I wanted to send in the Guard, I wanted to send in the troops, and sometimes I did. In Minneapolis, I sent in the troops and saved the place. I was getting ready to send them in Seattle when, if you look at, I guess it was Antifa, took over a big portion. You don't read about that too much. Nothing happened to those people, or very little. I think nothing. But they took over a big portion of Seattle. The troops were ready to go in, and they heard that. All of a sudden, they decided to leave. Thank you very much for leaving. But, you know, the president is not supposed to be doing that. The president is supposed to do it at the request of the governor. Well, when the governor was a Democrat, or the mayors are Democrats, they don't want any help under any circumstances. Very much like on January 6th, where I offered Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of D.C. from 10 to 20,000 troops, because I thought the crowd was going to be very, very large coming in, because I felt it. You could see it. And they turned it down. And if they didn't turn it down, and Kash Patel is a witness, right? I think I can say you're a witness. But we have many other witnesses to that. From 10 to 20,000, they turned it down. And had they not turned it down, you wouldn't have had January 6th as we know it. But the president is not supposed to be sending in at will. I think the next time, either we're going for a very quick change or we're sending them in, because we're not going to let Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Portland is, they don't even, when the storefronts, they don't even use new storefronts. You know what they do? They just put up wooden barricades now for stores, for the few remaining. Places are burned out Hulk, and nothing happens to those people that have destroyed that place, that city. It's also time to take back our streets and public spaces from the homeless and the drug addicted and the dangerously deranged. Because no civilized society can allow this depravity and squalor to continue. You can't let this happen. Places like San Francisco, the backyard of Nancy Pelosi. She, by the way, has a big wall around her house. You know that, right? But it's so bad. It's gotten so bad. People are leaving. Nobody wants to have office space there. Who would want to have an office space when you're walking through a lot of people that are unfortunate and in many cases very sick, mentally ill? It's actually dangerous to walk into your office. If liberals think that it's somehow compassionate, then you're going to have to let them invite the homeless to camp in their backyards, in their homes, and ruin their property and attack their families and use drugs where their children are trying to play. And all of a sudden that'll stop very quickly. The only way you're going to remove the homeless encampments and reclaim our downtowns is to open up large parcels, large tracts of relatively inexpensive land on the outer skirts of the various cities, and bring in medical professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, and drug rehab specialists, and create tent cities. You have to have They have tents right now. They're living in tents with holes in them. You don't have time to build buildings. You can do that later, but you have to get the people off the street. We have to reclaim our cities. And now you'll have people that will be taken care of. We'll have doctors,
Like I've said, we have the Reagans, we have the Bushes, and we have the so-called churches that would not open their eyes to this divine message to blame for these things. This man, he's trying to come up with a solution towards trying to repair these things, because we have turned into nothing more than a wounded infestation of a cesspool, to the degree that our judges are getting payoffs, getting paid under the table. A lot of these deputies are. A lot of these other law enforcement agencies are. And whenever you have that much corruption that's bleeding into the corruption, kind of like the pot calling the kettle black, then you have what you have today in 2022, which has basically been 34 years later, since 1988, that we're facing off on things today that they didn't even dream of facing off on in 1988. But now we have been wounded, we've been deprived, we've been injured, we've been taken down the road, we've been taken advantage of, and now we're having to use play number 2 just to make up for what those 30 years plus while people was raking in the money and not doing their jobs. So sad.
And we have to relocate the homeless until they can get their lives back and then come back to where they want to be. And we'll bring a lot of them back. They will come back. But right now, nobody's coming back. You have no medical help. You have no nothing. It's so dangerous, those streets. Los Angeles is so bad. San Francisco, every city that's run by Democrats, so bad. We want them.
And a lot of your rural areas, like out here in the country, get to thinking, well, nothing like that's ever going to happen to us. That's only going to happen to the city folks. Well, it will happen to us, and it's already happening to us. It's just not on the level that it's already happening in the cities it's already happening in. It's infested with that. But eventually, yeah, there'll be homeless people. There'll be people walking around that has lost their minds. There'll be people walking around that don't want to work. It feels like the world owes them a living. And we're basically already there right now, to a big degree, because of the way that this has been mishandled. The way that it's been mishandled. We're right now staring at 3 components that could go belly up at any given moment, either over in China, the Middle East, or Russia. People has no idea how close that we actually are to a total collapse or a destruction of our nation. January the 6th was only a wake-up call. And if we don't wake up to what happened January the 6th, I'm just afraid the next time it's going to be like a million zillion times worse than what January the 6th ever thought about being.
We want them to succeed. We want people to succeed. But they cannot be allowed to turn every sidewalk and public park into their personal campground. It's so dangerous. As everyone here in Texas knows firsthand, there is another horrific disaster we must confront if we want to restore safety in our country. At long last, we must stop the invasion at our southern border. It's an invasion. Our country is being invaded. Our country's being invaded just like a military force was pouring in. Just last month, an illegal alien here in Texas was indicted for the cold-blooded murders of 4 elderly women throughout the state, and he's been accused of links to the deaths of at least 24 people. 24 people. Perhaps the deadliest serial killer in Texas history. They're now saying he could be the deadliest serial killer. He's an illegal alien. Earlier this year, an illegal alien fugitive with a prior arrest for aggravated assault and many other arrests viciously shot and killed a Harris County police officer at a traffic stop. No reason whatsoever. None. And in New Mexico last year, an illegal alien criminal out of jail on unsecured bond was charged with decapitating a man, mutilating his body, and kicking his head around like a soccer ball all over the public park. Think of this. Animals. Never forget, every death at the hands of a criminal, illegal alien, is entirely preventable. This is all preventable stuff. We remember Kate, don't we? We remember Kate standing in San Francisco with her father. We remember that. A man who came in 5 times at least and shot beautiful Kate dead. Republicans in Congress must make clear that on their watch, not a single penny of taxpayer money will go to funding Joe Biden's open border agenda. It's a sick agenda. It's a sick agenda. Makes no sense. And some things make sense. You know, I understand the other side. You always have to understand the other side. I understand the other side. Open borders. Nobody has open borders. It makes no sense. You know, we fight and spend billions and billions and even trillions of dollars defending the borders of countries that are 7,000 miles away, but they don't want to spend any money to defend our border. It makes no sense, does it? Next year, we have to use the purse strings to send a message to every would-be illegal alien all over the world. If you break into our country illegally, you will be caught. We will detain you, and we will quickly send you back to the place from which you came, or put you in prison immediately. And we did that. We told people, remember at the beginning we had these big caravans. We didn't have the caravans, and now they're starting at caravans. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. But the Obama administration had a big problem before us, because they would bring people into Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico, lesser extent. And they'd bring them back, and they wouldn't let us land the planes. They wouldn't let them have buses. They wouldn't let them come back into the country. So you'd have the worst gang members in the world, mostly MS-13. And if they came from Honduras, we couldn't get them back. And I had some incredible people in my office, Border Patrol people. Guys like also Tom Holman and Mark Morgan. So many others. These are great people. These are brave people. But they'd be in and they'd say to me, tell me, we can't bring them back, sir, because the country won't allow. I said, really, why won't they allow? They won't allow. They don't want MS-13 back in their country. They force them out. They put them into caravans. They force them out. And why wouldn't they? How smart. I mean, you don't have to be. They don't want them in their country. So what happens, I said, all right, good. How much money do we pay those 3 countries? Sir, we pay them $750 million a year. It's a lot of money, right? Peanuts compared to what we pay to some, but $750 million. I said, that's all right. Put out a notice immediately that we're stopping payment. We're not going to pay anymore. And they said, sir, I don't think it'll work. We tried everything. That's why we kept them here, because we couldn't get them out. That's all right. You let them know we're not going to pay any more money to them. The following morning, I got calls from the 3 presidents of the country. President, there seems to be a problem. Our funds have been cut off. Yeah, they've been cut off because you wouldn't allow these people back that you probably pushed into our country because you didn't want them because they were criminals and they were in jail in many cases. You got to take them back. Oh, President, this was just a minor misunderstanding. We would love to have MS-13 come back into our country. And they took them back, and we couldn't get them out of here fast enough, I will tell you. That's true, Carrie. Carrie will do it. Carrie's going to stop them at the border. There's nobody coming in. Arizona, that'll be a safe place again. This guy Kelly, by the way, he's done nothing. He's done nothing. Blake Masters is going to do a fantastic job, Carrie. Kelly's got nothing going. He never...
I'm going to stop right there. I shouldn't have to be this opinionated over the things that are going on today in our country or in the world pertaining to me voicing my opinion
Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, Congressman Benny
on various things that are happening right now.
Homeland Security's independent watchdog to testify about that agency's handling of missing Secret Service text messages from the same time period. Here's former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta on MSNBC.
I don't think there's any question that when you go from agency to agency and find out that key messages have been deleted, something's going on here that resembles very clearly a conspiracy.
Joining me now is Harry Littman, former U.S. Attorney and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. He's the host of the Talking Feds, not the Talking Heads, the Talking Feds podcast. Harry,
hi,
thank you for joining me. Let's start with the news that the Department of Defense wiped the phones of some former senior Trump administration officials. Now, we, the public, only know about this latest trove of missing texts because a government watchdog group, American Oversight, sued the DOD. So let's just talk about this, how we got this information, what it means, what we should imply from it.
Yeah, so all of those questions are a little murky, but where we should go from here is not. So DOD, as you say, they're the third agency. All 3 of these agencies have relevant information about January 6th. We already know DOD, remember, Trump reached out to and said they should put troops at the ready and maybe seize machines. What we have so far is just these self-serving public statements by people who have a lot of squirreliness in their backgrounds. You just have to get about a half dozen people in a room and they have to be sworn. And I think the inspectors general are not the right place. What Maloney says is right. They need to be sworn by people with some criminal authority. The best, and I think very possible here, is the Department of Justice. Next to that would be a congressional committee. But this is not for inspectors general to say, was their agency failure to adhere to the standards? This is a possible crime.
Well, there's a committee in existence. It's the January 6th committee. They say they're coming back in September with hearings, but we're also kind of running against the clock, right? Likelihood that the House takes a Republican turn in the midterms. Would you expect that committee picks up on these threads after the August recess, and that this is a central component of whatever hearing that they plan in September?
Hard to say because they have a lot of fish to fry, as you say, and not much time to do it. And in general, like with Cipollone, they take what they can get. If the OIGs are very cooperative, sure, they'll do it. But if not, it doesn't matter. It's a big enough separate now scandal. It's almost like the big cover-up that is ancillary to what they're looking at. So it has to be looked into. There are standing congressional oversight committees, but really best is the Department of Justice. Leon Panetta knows government. When he says there's a conspiracy out there, you've got to pursue it, and he's right.
Yeah, let's just to keep it centered on the Hill for 1 second, then we'll get to the justice component of it. because there's this new letter, Congresswoman Maloney, Congressman Thompson,
Yep.
they renew their demand that Joseph Kufari, the Homeland Security Inspector General, that he step aside from the investigation. This week it was revealed that Kufari was previously accused of misleading federal investigators and running afoul of ethics regulations while he was in charge of Justice Department Inspector General Field Office. What can be done? It doesn't look like he'll step aside willingly. What can or should be done if he decides not to?
Well, first, Biden should fire him tomorrow. It's really unclear why he's sticking around. He's a Trump holdover, which isn't enough to fire him, but as you say, we have these previous issues, and he's been really both squirrely and had this sort of unwarranted arrogance about this all. At the very best scenario for him, there are things to explain. He's got serious explaining to do, and he just won't do it, and instead has chosen to get his backup. He's a guy who didn't report for many months. His office then said, "Oh, never mind, you don't have to produce." High.
I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go outside real quick to finish off what I want to say here. Whenever it comes to the inadequacies, and boy, hadn't there been many of them. It seems like there's really no end to all these inadequacies towards one group or one person not doing his job, or one person refusing to back down so that others can do their job. It just seems like that there's no relentless end to all of this. That is steadily going backwards in the way that it's going backwards. It's almost like a roller coaster ride. Up one day, down the next. Up one day, down the next. It's a yo-yo ride. That's exactly what it is. It's a yo-yo ride. And in the process of being in a yo-yo ride, people's lives are being destroyed. Promises are being broken. People's obligations are being broken. People's lives are being torn apart. But yet now, society continues to deal with this. And you have to ask yourself a question, which is, when will enough be enough for the American people to stop all this bickering and all these people not doing their jobs? When will the American people get enough of all these inadequacies? The answer to that question I still have yet to answer, because I don't know the answer towards when will enough be enough, other than possibly whenever God himself comes back, just as the scriptures talks about pertaining to the Lord Jesus Christ, that he will come back and he will sever the wicked from among the just. Because it's pretty apparent, whenever you have the wicked that has empathy and sympathy for the wicked, do you really think that we can rely upon those people to do that in which what needs to be done? Once more, you have to look at the facts towards what Jesus Christ talked about, that sinners love sinners. And even though the person that's in charge may not be a murderer, because they know that they're everything else but a murderer, they're going to have a great deal of empathy and sympathy for the people that's doing the murdering. The only way that America is going to be able to get out of this is going to have to go back to the cross, and we're going to have to vote out these people that have taken advantage of the system and taken advantage of us, and put in good, sound people that will produce on their promises towards the things that they tell the American people towards what they're going to do, and then watch them do it. I realize, being the judge, the jury, and the executioner is a tough, tough job for anybody to have to handle. Okay? Especially looking at it from a Christian, civilized tone towards having to go up against this type of aggression. But if we don't do it, inevitably, the evil, the bad, the corrupt, the unjust is going to take over the just. Like I said a while ago, whenever it comes to all the inadequacies, this country has been shifting backwards now for a whole long time, and for various judges to judge America off of the decency of law and order compared to China or compared to Russia pertaining to these tyrant type countries, it has reached a point that you have to ask yourself a question, well, which is worse for society? To be like a tyrant country like over in China or Russia, or to be lenient to the point that now crime has turned into nothing but a cesspool here in America? And it's not just Chicago. Don't fool yourself. It's not just Chicago. It's just a matter of time before we're going to hear of another major, horrible, horrendous mass shooters. May not be a school. May not be something that maybe something that we never would have thought of. But it's just a matter of time before we're going to hear of another horrible event. So whenever these politicians talk, it's only been today that I've heard one that's even remotely come close of choosing the right path towards getting rid of all this stuff. And that is the drugs and the drug dealers, the lazy people, and, those that's already made a mistake in being crazy because they either was on drugs or they need to be on drugs. We'll have to deal with them in more of a civilized way. And I don't know for sure what that way is right now. But it goes back to the fault of the blame game towards where did we go wrong. I continue to say where we went wrong was in 1988, long about the latter part of March, first part of April, whenever I sent 9 cassette tapes to the White House, and Ronald Reagan convinced the superpowers that the world wasn't going to be destroyed by man, but yet now wasn't nobody willing to support the man that was called upon God to be the man. I'm nothing without God. I'm nothing without the Lord Jesus Christ. I can't even begin to tell you the failures that I have made personally on my own behalf of things that I either shouldn't have done or should have done that I didn't do. So whenever I'm preaching to the world by using this platform, I'm not just preaching to various people's lives, but I'm also preaching to my own. If you'll notice in behind the car there, the American flag that my brother and I set up for a public display of anybody that wants to drive by here and see the flag. That flag now has been down about 3 days for two reasons. One reason is because of all the death and the destruction that happened up in Kentucky. And another reason why was because of I don't know if it was a senator or congressman, whoever it was associated with the government that was in a bad accident that wound up dying. But that flag that I just got through looking at has fallen since I've come back here in 2017. Excuse me. Since I come back here in 2014, it was 2017 when my brother died. But that flag has fallen, I know, 8 to 10 times a year since I've been back here. That very flag right there. Okay? And usually it was over a horrible, horrible gun incident that happened here in America. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this, and I'm sick of people making promises that are nothing more than just void, empty promises towards what has went on and what is going on. If we don't straighten up our act, as I have said before, pertaining to the environmental deniers, in which Donald Trump is one of them, God will intervene, and as I have said before, He will not force nobody to do the right thing or to live the right life, but what He will do is turn you over to a reprobate mind and let you believe a lie to be damned, in the degree that He may not force you to do the right thing, but inevitably He can make you regret that you didn't, by allowing for all this horrible, horrible stuff to continue to fester and to grow worse and worse and worse and worse, which I pray to God won't happen. But in the past 30 plus years in my lifespan, I have seen just exactly that. You know, whenever I come back here to Weakley County in 2014, I wouldn't have thought in a million years that people would have been objectionable to the American flag flying on this property. But they was. They was. Tomorrow is a day set aside for our men and women in uniform pertaining to Purple Heart Remembrance Day. Those that have fought in combat, those who have taken on injuries, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, those who come back from wars, even though they may not have been injured physically. A lot of them was injured emotionally, psychologically. Tomorrow is set aside, August the 7th, for that particular day of remembrance. I pray for all our military men and women and our law enforcement, our judicial system, every day. Every day. There is not a day that goes by that I do not remember my own countrymen, and I do not remember those that have struggled and fought so dearly for the very freedoms that consequently, if we don't watch, are going to be taken from us all. I'm asking that tomorrow, whoever gets a hold of this video, that they pass it on in memory of those of the Purple Heart Memorial that has been set up here for this very cause, in regards towards the men and women and those that suffered consequently for our freedoms. I apologize because I haven't been able to come out here during the heat of the hot and do anything with the Purple Heart Memorial this year, but I will. I'll do something. I don't know what I'm going to do to it. I know all those items that I got on top of it right now will be removed, but I'm going to have to do something with the rock in corrugation with not enough shade that now God has gifted me with a Looks like a maple growing there. Maybe an oak, but it looks like a maple to me. Towards a few years from now, there will be enough shade there. But because the extensive heat this year has been so hot, I haven't been able to do what I really wanted to do to the Purple Heart Memorial this year. But I will. Rome wasn't built in one day. But I never would have thought that so many people in this neighborhood would have resisted and reacted the way that they did towards supporting our men and women in uniform pertaining to our military and our law enforcement. There's no doubt there's bad apples in every bunch. There's no doubt that Secret Service made one of the most horriblest mistakes that they could have ever thought about towards the resistance movement that began going on 34 years now, in 1988 during Ronald Reagan's administration. I hope now that throughout all the hardship, throughout all the inadequacies, that eventually we will get back on the straight and narrow. Eventually there will be a revival. Eventually it will lead into a revolution. And eventually we will see a temporary utopia or a peace that will come up onto the planet, just as the Bible preaches and predicts that has already been selected to happen in the last days. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I didn't write the Bible. I'm fortunate to be a messenger or even a intercessory in regards towards seeing the horrors and the sorrows that's going to be falling upon to not only this great nation but the world. But my intercessory only goes so far. I can only go so far whenever it comes to God lifting his protected hand off of this great nation and basically giving us over to a reprobate and letting us believe these lies and basically become damned. I just want the record to show that on this particular day, that I'm making a day before the day of tomorrow, when we're to set aside a day of remembrance for our military men and women. I just want the record to show that I have tried so desperately to warn the people, to give out advisories, and to try to help these combat wounded soldiers, either directly or indirectly, pertaining to our men and women in uniform. I just want the record to show that this country has an opportunity, while I'm still living, to turn it around. And whenever I say turn it around, I do mean turn it around. Just as the sign up there says, the battle is over, but the fight has just begun, in honor of our veterans. The battle is over, but the fight has just begun. You have to fight for the things that you care about. You have to fight for the things that you love. You have to fight for the things that you know are just and godly. And if you're not willing to fight, regardless whether it be the 2nd Infantry, called the Chiefs, if you're not willing to stand up for your community and for your country and for others who are being taken advantage of, who are being hurt, who are going through all kinds of stressful, immense problems right now. If you're not willing to fight for the lives of the innocent, then who's going to fight for you one day whenever the horrors fall into your lap? I was in Dyersburg the other day. I stopped at this person's business that I had this originally engraved in, pertaining to the deadliest mass shootings in America. And I'm going to have to advance those shootings simply because this was made in memory of George Floyd's death, May the 25th, 2020, which has now been full 2 years ago. I'm going to have to go back and add more places and more events to this plaque. And it absolutely sickens me. It saddens me that these events, rather than them going away, they've actually intensified. Now you keep in mind that this 46-year-old black male was killed over supposedly a $20 bill that somebody thought was fraudulently made up, as far as it being counterfeit, the way that I understand it. But there's lives today here in America that are being sacrificed over less than even a $20 bill. Whenever we watch the TV pertaining to the newscasters and politicians, we're only getting part of the story. We're getting their perspective, which is the rich perspective, the fortunate perspective. We're getting their perspective on what's going on in America. But in reality, we're not getting the whole perspective. We're not getting the working class perspective. We're not getting the poor people's perspective. We're only getting the fortunate people's perspective. It's time that America quit purposely blinding itself to the truth, and that we will be told the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help them God, in regards towards their own personal failures and what has caused us to be where we are today in the year 2022 in America. It is time that we merge from these problems, calling upon to our Lord and God, and that we will do the right thing in not only the eyes of the Christian society, but in the eyes of all society, towards doing the proper and right thing. It is time that we quit picking and choosing based upon the people that we know, or the people that we believe that we know, in retaliation towards them going to do the right thing. And then ultimately, in the end, they do the wrong. Just the other day, God let me be in contact with a group of people that was selling these flags that I felt like was a cool flag. It's got to do with the corrections, It's got to do with the dispatch. It's got to do with EMS. It's got to do with emergency, fire, police, and our military. It's got to do with all the above. Whenever it reaches the time, even as a messenger or a minister of God, to the point that we do not set aside these safety issues towards being prioritized in the way that they deserve to be prioritized, then we no longer deserve to live in a civilized country under "In God We Trust." Because if we cannot unveil the ugly to be able to see the differences in those that has disguised themselves as being good versus those that we know are bad, then we as a nation will cease to exist. I thank God every day that the Lord has inspired for me to stand up and speak and be knowledgeable of these things and putting out these warnings or these advisories. Though I get, it seems like, less and less positive reaction or response from any of these groups, I know that I stand in support of nothing more or less than the red, white, and blue. But most of all, I stand for the Lord Jesus Christ. And I would rather die standing on my feet, telling my people to fight, fight, fight for the things that you know that are right. Fight for your loved ones. Fight for your community. Fight for your very existence. Fight for your pride. Fight for the things that you know that are tearing our communities and our lives apart. But most of all, fight for God. Fight for the Lord Jesus Christ. Because whenever we're no longer willing to fight for Him, then it's a real strong possibility that He will no longer be willing to fight for us. And if that happens, you think that you've seen hot summers, you think that you've seen depleted crops, you think that you've seen famines as far as going to the grocery stores and seeing either high prices or seeing shelves empty, you haven't seen nothing yet. You have not seen nothing yet in memory of the Purple Heart Memorial, in us standing aside for those who have sacrificed so much for us in the past. And of course, the main sacrifice is the sacrifice that God's Son was willing to go to the cross, that in His dying breath said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." There's going to come a time whenever America can no longer stand under the shadows of insanity in pleading either the fifth or pleading insanity for their plea. And we have just about run the score on God the Father winking at our own inadequacies or our own ignorance. It's one thing to be unknowledgeable of the factors, and it's another thing to be knowledgeable of the factors and still not do nothing about those factors. We are reaching that point now that, as I myself in 2005 projected or predicted of a bloody road ahead based around various things that was occurring, including of the apocalypse, the four horsemen, And we are also reaching the point of major electrical disturbances that are happening simultaneously here in America for one reason or another on levels that once more the American people has not been adjusted or used to seeing. As we continue to bring in more and more citizens into our country, either legally or illegally, the system is continuously being strained. The system is continuously deteriorating itself, and the system is going to continue to fail towards brownout and blackouts. Why the group done what they done up in western Kentucky pertaining to land between the lakes, I have not the answer to. The only thing that I can tell you with all certainty, that one day those people will stand in front of the same judge that everybody else is going to stand in front of, and they will give an account for the things that they done, that they shouldn't have done, etc., etc. As of last night, yesterday evening late, I went to Murray, Kentucky, and they had a emergency distribution thing set up outside the door for people to accept money or necessities of either toilet paper or water or whatever to be given to this group of people. They had a big semi or moving truck that they was probably going to be heading up that way probably the Monday or Tuesday. Please, the people that have went through what they have went through up in eastern Kentucky, do not forget these people. Please help them if you can. I gave a little bit of money, and I also went in Walmart's and got some Powerades, and I gave it to them whenever I come out the door. And I still have some more stuff that I'd like to give to them pertaining to clothes, but I don't think they're taking clothes and stuff like that right now. They're basically just taking the essentials with money and water and toilet papertry and stuff like that. But later on, I'll be able to, I'm sure, either go up there myself or give it to a group of people like I did yesterday to help these people. But whenever we're seeing these severe sorrows that are hitting this great nation, as many times that they're hitting this nation pertaining to environmental changes, environmental crises that we're seeing now on a day-to-day level or week-to-week or month-to-month level, that even right now as I speak, Congress is trying to enact a new law or a mandate of, I think it's something like almost $740 billion that's going to be dedicated to road structure and advancements towards being able, people to be able to get other types of energy other than electricity, to be able to help the grid system pertaining to people having solar electricity and hybrid electricity and other types of form of energy. I just pray to God that bill will pass late this afternoon or the first thing in the morning. That is a step in the right direction, but that is not the solution to all our problems. The solution to all our problems is going to be combined with both in these government stimulus situations towards helping people get solar electricity and helping people go to hybrid and helping people to do various things. But the main ingredients to all this is going to be God. And if we don't put God in front of all this, all that other stuff that Congress can do is basically whistling Dixie. Whistling Dixie in the degree that no matter what we try to do, if we don't do it in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, it's all going to be done in vain anyway. So as I end in this particular message, dedicated to the Purple Heart Memorial Day tomorrow. Please remember all these people that I've just got through mentioning in regards towards our first responders, in regards towards those that sacrifice so much for our freedoms each and every day. Want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your prayers. A lot of corn will recover from the drought that we had in the Tennessee Valley, but there'll be a lot of it that won't. But I'm telling you now, next year will be worse. And the year after that will even be worse if we don't take heed to the messages of the messengers that are putting out these messages. Like I said a while ago, whenever it comes to intercession, the prayer of intercession goes a long, long way pertaining to mercy and grace, just like the Lord Jesus Christ that said that he sitteth upon the right hand of the Father that maketh intercession prayer for us. For if we sin, we have an advocate with the Father. But if our lives is wandering and has strayed away from these issues right here, which as far as I'm concerned are the main ones pertaining to the 10 Commandments and many other commandments of God that he has given us. If we stray away from that, we have strayed away from everything. And the reason why I know this is because even the Lord Jesus Christ said that if a man gaineth the whole world but loses his soul, what has he gained? In actuality, his life is in vain. Because if we cannot stand up to that in which what we know that is right, then eventually the Heavenly Father will turn his back on us, and he will give us over to a reprobate mind, and we will be damned. We think that we're damned now pertaining to our streets, pertaining to our drugs, pertaining to our education, pertaining to our safety, pertaining to the problems with excessive energy usage, pertaining to the weather, pertaining to environmental crisisness, and etc., pertaining to us being $30 trillion in debt, pertaining to all the drug overdoses and the suicides. We think that we've been damned. We ain't been damned yet. This thing can get a whole lot worse if we take a blinded eye to this much longer in these degrees. I pray for our nation. I pray for the people in our nation. I pray for the first responders. I pray for the people engaged in the military. I got a grandson right now that's in the military, in the Army. Last I heard, he was stationed somewhere over in Kansas. I pray that there will be a mighty movement in the Lord of the Holy Spirit in these final and last days. One other thing I want to bring to your attention before I end. I have been accused, or almost accused, of being more political than I am spiritual. I am always spiritual and will continue to be much more spiritual than I ever thought about being political. But because of the circumstances that has arisen in the past 30 plus years in my life, I felt like that it was important, that it was crucial for me to become political in telling not only my story, but my opinions about various things and various people. because we are in such trouble right now. If somebody don't become more expressionable about what's happening, then eventually we will be thrown completely into great tribulation. And whenever that occurs, people will beg to want to die, and death will flee from them. There are certain things in life that's worse than death. And that's where we're approaching right now if we continue on the path that we're on. And I have said this again and again and again, to the extent that it's almost as if I'm walking outside and I'm preaching to a tree, or I'm just talking to hear myself rattle. I have said this again and again and again. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless the men and women who have fought pertaining to the great Purple Heart Day of remembrance that comes to the American people's consciousness August the 7th of every year. Thank you for your time, and good luck to all of us, and shalom.